Morning light filtered through April's kitchen window like liquid gold, casting long shadows across her worn Bible. Her fingers traced the familiar verses of Psalm 35. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. She'd read these words countless times over the past year, clinging to them like a lifeline through sleepless nights and tear-stained prayers. The soft chime of her phone interrupted her morning devotional. A message from Grace, her church mentor, reminded her of tonight's community dinner. April's thumb hovered over the reply button, that familiar hesitation creeping in. Social gatherings still felt like wearing shoes that didn't quite fit, even a year after the divorce that had shattered her carefully planned future. "Lord," she whispered, closing her eyes against the strengthening sunlight. "I'm trying to trust your timing, but some days it feels impossible to move forward." The community center buzzed with warmth and conversation that evening. April helped Grace arrange desserts on fold-out tables, taking comfort in the methodical task of organizing cookie platters and pie slices. The elderly woman hummed hymns under her breath, her presence as steady as a lighthouse in a storm. "Sometimes," Grace said, adjusting a crooked napkin, "God's greatest gifts come wrapped in ordinary moments. We just have to keep our hearts open enough to recognize them." April nodded, though her attention had drifted to the entrance where James, the new youth pastor, was helping a group of teenagers carry in musical instruments for the evening's worship session. There was something about his gentle manner that made her think of early morning sunshine, warm and unthreatening. Their paths crossed later that evening when April volunteered to help clean up. James was wrestling with a stubborn folding chair that refused to collapse properly. "Mind if I help?" she offered, surprising herself with her own boldness. "Two pairs of hands are better than one," he smiled, and together they managed to convince the chair to cooperate. What started as simple conversation over cleanup duty began to bloom into something more precious over the following months. April found herself looking forward to Wednesday night youth group sessions, where she'd volunteered to help with music. James had a way of making scripture come alive for the teenagers, and she often found herself learning alongside them. One evening, as they walked through the church garden after a particularly moving Bible study, James stopped by the rose bushes Grace tenderly maintained. "You know," he said, gesturing to a bloom that was just beginning to open, "I used to think faith was about having all the answers. But now I believe it's more about being willing to watch things unfold in God's time, like these flowers." April's heart quickened at his words, remembering countless prayers whispered into her pillow, begging God for healing, for direction, for hope. "I thought I knew what my life was supposed to look like," she admitted. "When everything fell apart, I felt like I'd failed God somehow." James turned to face her, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe sometimes things fall apart, so God can put them back together in a way that makes more sense than we could have imagined." Their first official date was simple, coffee after Sunday service, but it felt profound in its gentleness. As weeks turned into months, April began to recognize God's handiwork in the small moments. The way James always seemed to text exactly when she needed encouragement. Their shared love of worship music led to impromptu duets at the piano after youth group, the natural way their prayers complemented each other. 1 year to the day after that first community dinner, April sat in her kitchen again, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of promise. Her Bible lay open before her, but this time to Song of Solomon, chapter 11 to 12. "For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come." James had asked her to marry him the night before, not with grand gestures or fairy tale flourishes, but with quiet certainty in the church garden where they'd first truly connected. Grace had been there too, accidentally tending to her roses, her knowing smile suggesting she'd been praying for this moment long before either of them had seen it coming. As April prepared for her morning prayers, she noticed how different the light seemed now, not just breaking through darkness, but revealing all the beauty that had been there all along, waiting to be discovered in God's perfect timing. Her heart, once carefully guarded, had learned to beat in rhythm with a love story written not in fairy tale magic, but in faithful moments and answered prayers.